Hello, everyone, and welcome as we begin to celebrate half a century of MIT entrepreneurship. My name is Dave Schmidtlein. For those who have not met, I'm Dean of MIT's Sloan School of Management, and we are so very excited to have you here for this celebration. I know some of you traveled a significant distance. All of you live very busy lives. This is important for us that you chose to spend this time here at MIT and with each other. You here this evening represent some of the people who are closest to entrepreneurship at MIT, and it's a special treat and important for us to be able to have you here with us. Celebrating entrepreneurship at MIT, of course, centers around people, and we are going to be celebrating the people who created and led and contributed to entrepreneurship at MIT. Some of those people are faculty, some of them are students, some of them are administrators who have led the design and delivery of our programs, and of course, some of them are successful entrepreneurs, and we've been so very fortunate to have an amazing group of people gather around MIT and then go out and do amazing things. The work that they've done, of course, is creative and adaptive, but it's also, I would suggest to you, rigorous. There's a discipline of thought, of mind, that our entrepreneurs have brought to their work, and a refusal to fail, a passion and an energy that you all know about. We'll be hearing from a number of those successful entrepreneurs, some well-seasoned and some pretty young, tomorrow during a great day of activity. In addition to people, MIT is a place that ideas matter. And if you'll forgive me, I honestly would suggest to you it's a place where ideas are made to matter. And so we in entrepreneurship also are proud to have ideas that make a real difference to the way that entrepreneurship and innovation is practiced today. But we're equally proud to be a source for disciplined ideas that we'll still be proud to know 10 or 20 years from now, or I'd like to think 50 years from now as we celebrate the centenary. Some of us celebrate the centenary of entrepreneurship at MIT. And we'll be hearing about those ideas and the people who are creating those ideas tomorrow as well. I said this is MIT's extended family here this evening, and we'll add 150 or so additional members of our extended family here tomorrow. For now, what I'd like to do is to turn you to good conversation at your tables. As part of that family, we have a short program this evening that will begin over dessert. Please enjoy. Thank you.
The short program is beginning. And it is a short program. My role tonight is merely to welcome you here and then to introduce our sole speaker of the evening, who will probably be short, but maybe a little bit longer than the rest of us. But I really do want to start with a welcoming. You are an extraordinarily unique group. You are ours. You are, by and large, the people who have, over many years, built an understanding based upon research and study of the field of innovation and entrepreneurship. And we are so proud to have been able to help you in getting you to the point of doing your work, of bringing that work to the rest of the world, of bringing that work to impact upon your students, whether they're here or in other institutions, upon policymakers who have listened to the conclusions you have drawn and have had, through you, great impact upon many and many parts of the globe. And we're very proud of you for that, and we're very thankful that you've agreed to come back at our invitation to celebrate together. Tonight is a semi-reunion. It's not official, but it is a reunion because it is bringing you together to reunite a body of people, mostly here, those who were our PhDs or are even our PhD students today, those who were our faculty or are our faculty today, and we really feel a kinship to all of you that is very personal. Those of you who are faculty know the kind of relationships that you develop with your PhD students. It's a relationship first of mentoring and developing, but then it becomes a relationship of colleagueship and of dramatic amounts of goodwill as the people you help to develop go out to go and develop others and the like. So there is a feedback effect and there is a multiplier effect that we are part of, and I think we feel very good about being part of. One word about what it is we're celebrating. I got an email this morning from Susan Hockfield, former president of MIT, and the person who is chairing the opening session in the alumni path tomorrow morning. There are two pathways tomorrow morning, an academic pathway and an alumni entrepreneurship pathway. Susan's chairing the first session on biotech and life sciences. And Susan's question was, what is this an anniversary of? She doesn't remember what it was that happened 50 years ago that would make this a half-decade anniversary. And I wrote her a long note. I tend to write long emails. But I figure the extra sentence does help. You don't get a return question in the next one. You just get thank you. I said we're not really celebrating any specific event. We're celebrating essentially a time period, because in her note she said MIT has had entrepreneurs from the very beginning. And I said, indeed, that's absolutely true. And in the only presentation I'm going to make, which is the beginning of lunch tomorrow, I said I will certainly start with Mens et Manus in 1861 and then talk about a tradition and a culture and strong science and technology breeding many entrepreneurs who came out of MIT with no education that related to that per se, with no programs, with no nurturing and the like. I said, but it happens that in 1961, the first course that has been sustained was created and taught by Richard Morse. And in 1964, the first research that was started and sustained on MIT spin-offs was started by me. And right after that, the MIT Alumni Association began a series of MIT alumni seminars on how to start your own business, which crisscrossed the United States and addressed at least 3,000 MIT alumni who showed up to learn a bit about how to start their own business. And right after that, the MIT Enterprise Forum was started as a result, and that grew to 26 chapters, first throughout the United States, and then globally. And finally in terms of developmental stages, in 1990, we started an entrepreneurship center. I said, until then, we had, at MIT, no organizational entities that were focused educationally, research, or organizational stimulus of student activities upon entrepreneurial activities. Hugh Sponson is there. He can correct me. In just before the 1990 start of the MIT Entrepreneurship Center, the student 10K competition started just before, but it really started as a 1K, so you know. Anyway, Yost was there then at the time. So that was my answer to Susan. We were celebrating a time period that's about a half a decade ago, a half a century ago, not a specific event. Having given you that background, I now want to go on with tonight's program, because tonight's program is to bring to you a person who really was momentous in the movement forward of the activities in entrepreneurship. That person is Simon Johnson. but I have to tell you the Simon Johnson origin in introducing him. I'm sorry?
He's talking over dessert.
Dessert? Oh. All right. If he's the dessert speaker, then I won't even tell you that story. Great. Then therefore, I can turn off at this point. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to tomorrow all day. And that is to introduce our dinner speaker, who is Simon Johnson. But I really have to tell you a story that nobody knows about Simon Johnson. So Simon is a very distinguished guy, and he's got a PhD in economics from MIT, which right away says that he's very distinguished and very smart. And he's done all kinds of wonderful things. But it turns out that I used to have a deal about building the entrepreneurship faculty at Sloan. And the deal came out of my 1990 proposal, which Lester Thoreau accepted. And it was that we were going to be very collaborative with all the functional groups in the school. And if somebody was being hired who was directly in entrepreneurship, and that was their principal field, that was okay. But if somebody was being hired who was in marketing or in finance, we would have joint search committees. Me and whoever the head of that functional group was would carry out the search, and it would have to meet the standards of both entrepreneurship and of that group. Okay, great. We got a slot for entrepreneurial finance, and Stu Myers and I were running a search. And after 2 months, Stu said, impossible, we can't find anybody in the field of finance that really knows anything about entrepreneurship, so I give up. We're not going to go look for an entrepreneurial finance guy. I went back to the dean, said, Stu has given up on finance, but you gave me a slot. Can I use it differently? He said, like what? I said, well, we don't have anybody in economics. He said, entrepreneurial economics? I said, why not? And he said, well, all right, what the hell? The search discovered Simon Johnson. Simon was doing work at that time in which he was looking at how countries at the grassroots level were carrying out entrepreneurial development activities, and as far as I was concerned, that was a really good starting point for us to have economics and entrepreneurship, and that was the basis for bringing Simon in. He probably has a different story, and I will now be delighted to introduce Simon Johnson, and he can deny all of this as he wishes. Simon, it's all yours.
So, thank you very much, Ed, for those kind words of introduction. And I'm certainly not here to dispute any facts that Ed remembers, because I think you all know he remembers facts much better than the rest of us. I have a very specific mandate that was given to me by Ed, which is to talk about a course that I built with my friends, many of whom are in the room today, called Global Entrepreneurship Lab, or GLab. And I'd like to tell you the history of that course a little bit. I'll focus on the humorous parts of the history. I'd like to tell you why I think this course works and why it's been so successful. And then I'd like to tell you, and this was very much Ed's suggestion, what I've learned more broadly from that course and from my activities in and around entrepreneurship at MIT. So I came here about 20 years ago. I'd been a graduate student. I came back as a visitor, and I joined the faculty, as Ed described. And at least my recollection, and I've got Ed on this side, Ken Morse on that side, so between the two of them, I'm sure they remember it better than I do. But my recollection was, the mandate I was given when hired onto the faculty was, Simon, we have a very strong set of faculty doing entrepreneurship around technology, entrepreneurship coming out of MIT and in this area. And we have this, we had at that time, we still have this fantastic course, Entrepreneurship Lab, E-Lab, which was somewhat legendary, certainly among the students. So Simon, we'll do the US, and the technology entrepreneurship, you do the rest of the world. I thought that was a good deal, actually. Until I sat down to try and design, there was a course. I said, Simon, you're going to have a course. You're on the faculty. We'll have, we give you various things to teach, but you're going to have your own course. And Ken, sitting right here, said, Entrepreneurship Without Borders, Simon. That's the name of it. That's what we still call it. I don't teach at all the same things, but we still call it Entrepreneurship Without Borders. It's a great name, Ken. So I did what every junior faculty does when given the assignment of developing your own course and a pretty short deadline to do it. I went onto the Harvard Business School website to see what cases were available. And to my dismay, there were almost none. And I'd undertaken, I believe, to teach a semester-long course with no Harvard or, as far as I could see, any other cases available. Now, I don't remember who had this idea, but I can only think it was born out of desperation. And that was, for me, to, instead of using cases that were written down, to have life cases, to have entrepreneurs. I must have got it from Ed and Ken and that milieu, and the fact we were talking to a lot of entrepreneurs. But instead of having that be a little part of the course, that was the course. And we had I remember Ed Roberts and Charles Zhang on Sohu, one of the early versions of this. And I remember, the great thing about Ed that I remember again and again is, this is a guy, when you first pitch him an idea, he's pretty skeptical. When you have him show up and actually do it and he sees it work, he says, Simon, this is pretty good. Right? You enjoyed that conversation with Charles, right? And at least in one of them, we had Ed in the room in person and Charles on the phone in China, right? And Ken remembers this, and Matt out of back was saying to me, he remembers we used to run phone lines down the corridor, and by the way, we still do. MIT has not got past the technology part of this delivery. So we figured out together that connecting with entrepreneurs around the world was kind of cool. It was interesting. There were some good conversations there. Some students came to me, and they came to Richard Locke, and I have to say, Richard Locke I'm very sorry that he can't be with us today. Richard, I wrote to him especially last weekend. He and I co-invented G-Lab, and he ran it for a number of years when I was elsewhere engaged. And I wrote to him recently, and I said, just last weekend, I said, Richard, we really want you to be here on Friday. And it was a typical Richard Locke response. He said, of course I'll be there, Simon. And 12 hours later, he said, by the way, he's the provost at Brown University now. Yeah. 12 hours later, he said, I just checked my calendar. I'm booked until 9 o'clock Friday evening. So I'm really sorry he can't be here. And he sends his best wishes to all of you. So this Entrepreneurship Without Borders has been quite successful. We were riding the dot-com bubble. And I knew that. I think we all knew that. And in 1 year, probably the second year I was teaching it, we offered one section. We had seats for 70 students. 150 showed up on the first day. And I was supposed to teach this course. And I was doing it all with entrepreneurs on the phone, right? And what was I going to do? And Richard is a good friend of mine. We used to go running all the time. And I put it to him. And he said, well, Simon, I could teach it with you. I said, great, let's do it. We had 2 sections, and it went well. And then some students came to us. And they said, love the course, really, really enjoyed it. Why don't we do projects outside the United States? Just like we do eLab projects, a lot of them are in Boston, some of them are in California. Why don't we do why don't we do that kind of project somewhere else, like, for example, Mexico, not much further than California? And our first reaction, I can take you to the place, the physical place, where where they put that question to me and Richard, and I can sit you down at that desk, and I can tell you what I said and what Richard said when the students made that proposal to us, which was, you must be crazy. But somehow we became somewhat persuaded, and we took it to Ed, and we said, and Ed has actually verified this, I had the email on the table there, and we said to Ed, we want to do it at eLab, but we want to do it global, we're going to do it outside the United States, I don't know, maybe Mexico. And Ed, in his distinguished, thoughtful leadership type way, said, "You must be crazy," right? slight paraphrase. He remembers the exact words, but he said, "But right, but I am right." Yes, Ed. Yeah. And Ed became persuaded, and we took it to the deans. The deans, not this dean, but the deans. Always good to swear. The deans. Keep it a little vague. The deans, and they said, "Yeah, you must be crazy." And then we took it to MIT, and MIT said, No, this is just not allowed. No, we have rules about when courses operate, and you're proposing to run a course in the fall and then into IAP. and to have credit, no, not allowed. So, I think all I want to claim credit for myself in this, is when I say no to things, I'm not too harsh on the people I say no to, and eventually I listen to what the students have to say, and I thank everybody who I've worked with at MIT, including Ed and Ken at the beginning, and Bill and Fiona now for approaching it in the same light. We have now run this course for 16 years completed. We're now in the 17th year. We've had more than 2,000 students complete this course. We've worked on more than 500 projects. We've worked with about 350 companies, almost all of which have been recruited by Sherry Lesberg, who's sitting here. And I'll come back to the importance of Sherry and what I've learned from working with Sherry and the rest of the team a little bit later. I couldn't have imagined that it would be. I thought we were riding the bubble. I didn't have tenure. I knew this was risky. Ed knew this was risky. Ed was an incredibly fair senior colleague. He said to me, Simon, if you want to get tenure, you've got to do this, this, and this. And this GLAB thing is not on the list, by the way. and he was right, and I followed his advice. And I'm still on the faculty. I am, Scott, honestly, I am. Sorry, Scott just threw me off there for a second. So I thought we were riding the bubble. I thought we were riding a wave. I thought it would be cyclical. I thought it would recede, and it hasn't. It just goes on and on. And we tried a couple of years ago, Dave will remember this one, to reduce the size. We thought, so a lot of other people have started to adopt what's now called action learning. Maybe it was always called action learning, but now it's action learning in much bigger letters. So there's a lot more action learning. There's a lot more entrepreneurship-related things. A lot of ideas that we've sort of developed on the fly. Other people have also worked on really hard. And it's an impressive effort across the school. So a couple of years ago, we announced that we'd actually reduce the size, cap the size of GLAB, make it smaller, make it more manageable. Sherry remembers this too. I had to call Dave on a Sunday morning after the student unrest to promise him that we would actually restore the number of students to what we'd had before. Yes, exactly. And fortunately, in that conversation, we were able to segue to what kind of resources would be necessary to make that happen. And I thank you very much for that. So it's been successful beyond our wildest dreams. It continues to go really strongly. 140 students will go out in January to work on these projects around the world. We just had our third GLAB CEO Summit, where now the CEOs come to us at MIT, not all of them, but many of them, change their schedules to come to MIT and to talk with among themselves and with us about the program, how to work with the students, what else is going on at Entrepreneurship. Joost is always incredibly helpful when they come. Thank you very much for that, Joost. So this leads me to my second question, which is, how do we do it? Why does it still exist? Why is it successful? And by the way, take this and run with it. Make it happen at another business school, make it happen at another university, do with it absolutely what you want. Lots of people have done similar things to us. I'll leave it at that. In fact, there is another university that has a course called GLAB. I think it actually stands for something different, but anyway, we won't get into that. Fine, let's do it. The more competition, the better. Every time I get new competitors, I have another conversation with Dave, and I say, Dave, the competition just got a lot harder. I think I need some more resource. I'll come back to that. But why does it work? What is it that the students want and that the companies want? And I'm pointing at Sherry because the Sherry will say to me every year, Simon, the companies. Let's remember the companies have to come back. It's almost all word of mouth marketing. It's almost all people, entrepreneurs, telling their friends, this was a good experience. Work with these MBA students. Why? What makes it work? I think it's three things. The first is connections. So we are offering a way for our students to connect with CEOs and to help CEOs, and a way for the CEOs to connect with our students and to connect with them to MIT that, maybe it doesn't surprise you, maybe you think it's completely obvious, and maybe it fits precisely with your experience and what you would have expected, but it's news to me, and it's amazing. I don't, by the way, anymore have entrepreneurs on the phone for my classes. I invite them to come to MIT and see us in person. And I think the world has changed in the last 20 years. So 20 years ago, it was fun to get somebody. We had one guy, I don't remember this one, Sherry, who talked, a Mexican entrepreneur, talked to us on a phone from a plane. And right before class started, I'm like, Sherry, I don't know if there's a phone on this plane. And he didn't know either. That was the whole class. And there was a phone, and it was a great class. I don't do that anymore. What people want to do is connect. They want to help each other. They want to work face to face. And that's what our students do when they go out around the world. The second thing that we do that's really important, and I really don't know if you could do this anywhere except at MIT, is we work constantly on quality and on reputation. And I say to the students every year, look, you take our reputation with us, every one of you, when you walk out the door. One disaster and we're finished as an activity, as a course. You have this, for me and for our colleagues, but you hold this reputation for all future students who come after you. Guard it well. And they do. When you put it to them like that, when they own the project, when they own the relationship, they do an incredible job. Now, I have to say, and this is another conversation I've had with Dave, my teaching rate, this is an incredibly successful course. We're oversubscribed many times, and we do always do well in the bidding, and it's an elective. Nobody's forced to take this course. And from time to time, I get the message through the chain of command, Simon, why aren't your teaching ratings higher? And the reason is that, by the way, I should have said this at the beginning. We don't have a lot of meetings at MIT. We never have meetings, retrospective meetings, discussing what we've done and why it worked. This is the first time in 20 years I've told Ed and Dave these things, and I'll probably never talk to them about it again. Am I right? So Scott threw me off again, I'm sorry. What was I saying?
No meetings.
Yes, right, no meetings before that. What was I saying before that? Teaching ratings. Why are my teaching ratings higher? The reason they aren't higher is the students don't like me. The students believe that the success of the projects and the course is entirely about them and the depth of their relationship with the CEO and the way they connected and the way they delivered value. And I'm just the annoying guy who told them to behave and who kept them on track and who lined up this incredible team of mentors we have working with us on GLab. Right? I don't think any of them were able to join us for dinner tonight, but these people are amazing, and they really help the students connect with the companies, and they're the infrastructure. Sherry is a mentor for this course also, but we have 9 other mentors working on GLab right now. I hope you knew there was that level of resources. You do now, anyway. So I think that we make the connection, we ensure quality, the students absolutely own that, and they really do follow through on that. And I think for the CEOs, and I've talked a lot to CEOs about this, as does Sherry, for the CEOs, it's like renting an extra brain. You connect with the students work for you. It's not like they'll go work for McKinsey or someone else in 6 months. Right now they work for you. They're part of your family. They're part of the entrepreneurial startup. And they help the entrepreneurs. When it works, they're given a task, they solve the task, but they also expand the entrepreneur's horizons. They let them think about all the important things that aren't urgent, right? That the entrepreneur wants to think about, wants to grapple with, needs to think about what's around the corner, but they don't have time because they're putting out the fires, right? Something else I learned from Ken. And so the students bring this very extraordinary, unusual thing to the entrepreneurs. And in return, they get to see the world through the lens of somebody else, through the lens of somebody who's not in the US, through the lens of somebody who's starting their company. We say to them, look, we want the entrepreneurs to work with the CEO, or if it's a slightly bigger structure, the decision maker. We want the students to be able to make a difference in that thinking, in that advice. And that's when the course works, and that's what makes the course successful. I should also say, just in case any of you, if you have suggestions or friends you'd like to recommend to the program, please do send them to us. We're absolutely always open. Sherry's sitting right here with a notebook. The other reason we're successful is we never, ever send students somewhere cold in January. Okay, we have had a couple of projects in Serbia. They've been fantastically successful projects. In fact, the first team that went to Serbia, the entrepreneur came to their graduation, and a couple of them, one of them got married, and the entrepreneur came to the wedding. Okay, well, that we don't need to go into. No, I wasn't going to bring that up. Yes, no. We keep that very much in the background. All right. So last point. What have I learned? What have I learned from this experience? What have I learned from working with these fantastic colleagues at MIT? Well, the first thing is absolutely obvious. It's the team, right? It's not me. If a student came into my office this morning, very smart student. I'm for my sins, now responsible for the Sloan Fellows Program at MIT. Thank you, Dave, for that one. And it's a great pleasure, and they're wonderful people to work with. And a student came into my office today, and she said, Simon, this is what we need to do to make the Sloan Fellows Program better. She had 9 points. There were 3 points in 3 buckets. It was all very clearly laid out. I agree with her. I knew a lot of that stuff already, but she put it much better than I could. I said to her, Anna, I don't mind saying her name because she's going to be famous one day. Look, all I'm going to do, Anna, is I'm going to take these ideas, I'm going to present them as my ideas, we're going to implement them, and people are going to think I'm brilliant. But I want to be clear about that. And she said, fine, Simon, do it. And I think that's the second thing I learned is listen to the students. Listen to the students when they come to you. Not every student, not every idea, okay, all right. But listen to the students who come to you with sensible, creative suggestions. And when my first, I'm just speaking myself, when my first reaction is no, I think about what I first said to the GLab students and what Ed first said to me, right? And so it's getting to know, or something, that should be my slogan, but nicely, or saying no nicely, I think is my tagline there. And that's the base. Somebody came to see me. I did my Entrepreneurship at Borders course 2 years ago, and in this course, now it's a half semester course. There's 12 sessions. I usually have 3 or 4 at the end. Where I on the syllabus I say to be jointly designed between me and the students. And I say to the students, look, good way to get participation points. Bring an entrepreneur. Let's design a case. Have them come in person, and we'll build the discussion. And this one student said to me, Simon, what we should really do this year is blockchain technology and Bitcoin. And my first reaction was, well, that's really crazy. And then I said, let's do it. Great, perfect. And now I'm a leader in the MIT's Digital Currency Initiative. We just ran a course on blockchain technology. I run a dinner series every Thursday right now. You're all welcome to attend it, which is a big discussion group at Sloan with technologists, cross-campus people in the community. We had an arcane, Christian can confirm this, a pretty arcane, inconclusive discussion on digital identity last night, attended by 50 people, all of whom then broke up into little groups and started arguing about the technology and how to build companies to really solve the problem afterwards. You would have liked that one, Ken. So I think I want to listen. I want to help people have that conversation. I want to build the team. And here's the last thing, the last specific thing that I learned. I want to say a couple of broader things, given what happened this week. But let me say the last thing specifically on entrepreneurship, which is, and what I've learned from building this, which is you are never. When you have nothing, and I don't mean nothing. I mean, I've been, among other things, the chief economist of the International Monetary Fund. I know what it is to live in the world with nothing, okay? I know there are 2 or 3, or we might say 5 billion people who have very, very little nothing, and we are not those people. But when you have nothing like we have nothing, when all you have is your PhD or your education, and when all you have is your friends and your colleagues and the people around you and the students, and a lot of people who want to work with you, when you have nothing, you are very, very strong. Because from nothing, you can build anything. And if you build it, and that first time when you begin to build it, you need to think, and it's a crazy thought, and it's an arrogant thought, but it's a real thought. And I say this to the students, and I think it's good advice. This may become big. This may change the way people see you. This may change the way people see the school. This may change the way people see the world. And you should build from that very beginning with that in mind. And starting with nothing is not a disadvantage. Starting from nothing is good, Ken. I absolutely learned that from you. Starting with nothing lets you do it the way you want and lets you bring together the people you want to solve the problems that you think are important. And that's what I've learned for 20 years, working under your umbrella, Ed, and with your permission, and actually not always seeking Ed's permission either. The other great thing about MIT, you know this, is, but I like to tell people outside MIT, so I'll tell you, which is, I've had many, many good ideas at MIT. A lot of them are in a filing cabinet at the back of my office, which is unmarked, and that's where you just bury things. And so, I typically don't seek permission. I didn't seek permission to build a course on blockchain and build these activities. I just do it, and if it works, and if the students come, and if it makes sense, given these criteria that we look for, that Ed is established and been the custodian of, then we celebrate the success. And if it doesn't work, we just move on. Which leads me to this week. And I did attend recently a concert held by Adele. How I got tickets for the Adele conference is a different conversation. Concert is a different conversation. I'm happy to let you in on that later. It was not easy. One of my more recent successes. So Adele made a number of very astute political comments and said very carefully, "I'm not going to name any names because that gets me into trouble." So I am adopting the Adele approach to policy right now. But I would say that the question that we need to think about and engage with, that is right up all our streets and entirely appropriate, is technology and society. And what does technology do? And I'm a big believer in the research that's been done by David Autor and his colleagues in the MIT Economics Department that says the main effect of new technology and information technology has been to create fantastic new opportunities for some people, and to also eliminate, through a process we could loosely call automation, a broad swath of middle-class, middle-income jobs. So it used to be in this country you could have a good job and your family could have a bright future if you only had a high school education. That is very difficult today. Now, other factors have contributed, including trade, to some degree, including the decline of unionization. This is also directly from the work of David Autor. I used to think that this wasn't my problem. I used to think, I work on a lot of policy issues. I'm very engaged on a number of fronts, but I can't do everything. And I do work a lot with entrepreneurs, and everything I feel really good. If I have a difficult, bruising day around the policy arena in Washington, and I come here and I work with entrepreneurs, and I work with the students with entrepreneurs, I feel really good about my life. I just feel we are being constructive, we are helping people, we are bridging gaps, distances, we are helping people build companies. And I think that's true, and that's what the CEOs tell us too. But I don't think that's enough anymore, at least not for me. I am now much more profoundly concerned about the effects of technology on society and the way that people in society react to that. And I don't think that reaction, in large part, is at all inappropriate. I think many people feel that they have been let down by what has been built around them. By whom? By us. Not because we had anything other than good intentions, not because we're driven by anything other than wanting to build great companies. But I think it's a really difficult problem how to make technology work for more people. And I don't know what the answer is. So what I'm going to do is listen to people. I'm going to build a team and help other people build a team of people who want to work on this. I am going to think really hard about practical solutions and different ways to approach this. And I tell you this, right now, I've got nothing. I've got nothing for you on that. And neither, by the way, do any of the experts. Really, I've got nothing. In fact, I feel today about political experts, people I've worked with, the same way I felt about financial experts 3 days after Lehman Brothers collapsed. I think you're better off forgetting all that, putting it aside, and starting afresh. Now, some of it you may want to bring back on board. Some of it may turn out to be right after it's been re-examined. But I think you should rethink. I am going to rethink everything. And I am going to attempt to build again a different understanding of what needs to be done, what's fair. The way I am convinced that entrepreneurship and starting new companies is good for everyone and good for the economy. I am convinced that that kind of competition is not just what we need, it's what everyone around the world needs. And I have had 20 years of validation on the front. And I stand in front of classrooms every day. I have hundreds of students every semester. And if I'm talking baloney, they will tell me. Okay? So I believe in this, and I've lived it. And I don't know what to do. And that's okay, because right now I'm starting with nothing, and that's a good place to start. And I'm starting with my friends, and that's a very good place to start. And we will build something better in answer to this question, I promise you. Thank you very much. And in the spirit of that, I would, in the context of that, and to make it absolutely clear that the gratitude that I feel and that I need to express for Ed Roberts. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Roberts. All right, went on a bit though.
Okay, so nothing comes after that, except to celebrate having faculty like Simon Johnson and so many others who are here this evening. We'll see you back here for breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:45 session start. That's my job. Good night.